Welcome to the Rapport Advantage Podcast, transforming the way leaders communicate. Here's your host, Alex Swire-Clark.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I've got a South Carolinian on the horn with me today, Brad Lanou, down from Bluffton area. What's up, Brad?
What's up, my friend? My nickname's Storm. Everybody calls me Brad Storm around these parts because you know what? When it rains, it pours, baby.
Where's my lightning sound effect? I don't have a lightning sound effect. I've got a. There you go. Somebody crashed because of the result of the rain.
Well, hydroplaning.
That's right. That's right. We're hydroplaning, but hopefully not out of control on the podcast anyway. Welcome to the Rapport Advantage Podcast. We are so glad that you're listening to us today. If you haven't listened to our podcast before, we are here to help you break down the walls of miscommunication, increase your emotional intelligence, and build better relationships in the workplace and beyond. I am Alex Swire-Clark, CEO, speaker, podcast host, father of 5, highly confused dude, but that's who I am. And with me today is Brad Storm. And so Brad is an expert in the world of wrestling. And so we're going to break down how he communicates with others today in a really fun episode. I'm sure you're going to like it. If you haven't listened to the show before, find us on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, pretty much everywhere you can find us. Just for those folks who have been asking, hey, where can we find you guys? Well, that's where you can find us. So Brad, I wanted to start off the day with asking you about your motto, which I absolutely love, which is punch every day in the face. So where did that come from, and what's the rationale behind that?
Well, it all goes back to 2011. I was going back to school. I was working full-time as a firefighter, and I would drive to work every day. I'd commute. I would hear on the radio that there was this Connecticut School of Broadcasting. So I decided to apply. I got involved with Connecticut School. I ran into a couple of guys, and we formed a MMA podcast, which was called MMA Mayhem. And what we'd do is we'd interview people on the show, but we'd also travel to events. And when I would be interviewing a fighter after the fight, it just came to me one day that, I'd end everything out with, I'm going to punch you. If you don't tune in, I'm going to punch you in the face. And so I used that with Enter the Flex Zone. It's a different vibe. I'm not interviewing fighters. I'm interviewing people from all over. And I just didn't want to tell everybody I'm going to punch them in the face when I'm doing these interviews or when I'm trying to do a preview video or whatnot. So I was just like, hey, it's a positive show. I'm talking to entrepreneurs. I'm talking to people in fitness, people that want to improve their life. So why don't I punch every day in the face? And since I'm taking this jump into this world of podcasting again and trying to get my own business going, I was just like, hey, man, this gets me going. If I feel down, if I feel out of sorts, I got to punch every day in the face. And I envision somebody's fist going through the sun. The sun has some glasses on, and it's getting punched in the face. The glasses come off, and, that's where it came from. And I've stuck with it.
That's awesome, man. And as we know, every day has its own set of adversity and challenges. Some are greater than others. But if you take that attitude of I'm going to punch every day in the face, you're the person in control, not your day. So you're going to be a victor, not a victim. I love it. I love it.
Right on, right on.
So let's talk about wrestling for a minute. I grew up in the South, and so we had NWA, we had WCW on pretty much every Saturday morning on the television. Mm-hmm. So we would all have wrestling fights on the bed. And, of course, somebody was Chief Wahoo McDaniel and somebody was Dusty Rhodes, American Dream. And then, somebody would be the evil, Tully Blanchard, and then Ric Flair when he went to the dark side and that kind of thing. So who was your favorite wrestler at the time? And secondarily, who was your favorite interview during that time?
Favorite wrestler, people are probably not going to like this because of what he did. But Chris Benoit was always my favorite prototypical wrestler as far as I'm concerned in the ring. Outside of what he did outside, it's horrendous. But in the ring, the guy knew his job. Back in the day, you didn't walk into the locker room and just earn respect. You had to gain respect. You had to show what you're made of. And Chris Benoit, he was a ring technician, wasn't the best guy on the mic, but I didn't always really like those guys. I liked the guys that could, get the work done because it was pro wrestling back in the day. Yeah, we knew it was kind of scripted and everything, but it wasn't so in your face. And he was such a strong style wrestler. When he punched you, he might have pulled it back a little bit, but you're going to take that shot. And him becoming the World Wrestling Entertainment Champion, WWE Champion, it was a great moment in his career for a guy that was 5'10", because I'm 5'7.5", maybe 5'8" on a good day. Because I knew that I loved pro wrestling, but I really never thought I could be a wrestler. And that's why I got into ring announcing. But the best interview I ever did, one of the better interviews I ever did, I hosted a show called the Abdullah the Butcher Show. And Abdullah the Butcher was known to brutalize his opponents. And he would take a fork to your forehead and he would make you you bleed, pretty much. He would take other objects and make you bleed. The guy was crazy, but I had an opportunity to host his show down in Atlanta. So I wasn't going to give up on that opportunity. And when I interviewed him, it was a great moment in my career, as far as a guy that I watched growing up, a guy that I was kind of petrified of. I mean, even when I did the show, I was kind of like, oh, should I be doing this? Should I be walking this way? Should I put the mic? What do I need to do? I don't know. But it was just exciting to see a legend, a WWE Hall of Famer, really, and talking with him and hosting his show. It was a good time.
You mentioned something has applications across the entire business world, and that is when Benoit came into the arena, not the arena per se in terms of where he was going to wrestle, but into the genre and into that career path, he had to earn his respect. And I think that a lot of folks will come into a company, hey, I graduated from this college with this GPA, and I'm walking on water, so I'm expecting to come in and just make the world blown away by storm. And hold on there, buddy. You got to earn your keep here. These guys have been doing what you've been doing for 15, 20 years. You need to make sure you slow your roll a little bit and learn from others around you before you start believing everything that you're printing about yourself. So.
And Alex, too, when I was younger, I had to learn a lot of lessons because I was bad Brad Storm. Nobody could tell me what to do. I was ring announcing everywhere. I knew everything, right? That wasn't the case. I had to be humbled by a lot of people. And then as I got older, I had a mentor. He would take me on the road, teach me the ropes, and respect the guys that have paved the way before me, even in firefighting. Nowadays it's a little bit different when a rookie comes in. But back when I was a rookie, and rookies before me, you got tormented. I mean, there is guys, if they could get under your skin, they were going to do it and jab and jab and jab and see what you're made of. And if you can take the punishment, if you can withstand the blows and punch every day in the face, you're going to come back and you're going to earn those guys respect. It might take 1 year, it might take 6 months, it might take 5 years, who knows? But you're going to earn respect, and that will ultimately lead you to being a better leader.
Got to face adversity, punch it right in the face. There's basically, when I think about that entryway, it's kind of like hazing a little bit. Talking about fraternities and things like that, and how they're making sure that everybody's going to be able to fight the good fight and endure. And then once you're done with that pledge thing, you've made it. Now you're one of the brotherhood. So that happens in industry as well. You've got to earn your keep. The shiny guy who's just coming in off the street and going to just take over the world, that's not going to happen. So got to make sure you earn your keep. As you've seen the wrestling world evolve, how do you think that it's changed from the days of the late 70s, early 80s, with Chief Wahoo McDaniel and Ricky Steamboat, and you can go even further back than that. But in terms of how the industry and how those organizations are marketing their products to people, specifically from the way they're communicating, because obviously, this show is all about transforming the way leaders communicate. So how have you seen that industry change in that regard?
Well, communication has evolved through pro wrestling throughout the years. We went from it being a sport to turning into a world wrestling entertainment, and all the questions, all the illusions, everything has been answered. But as wrestling has evolved, back in the 80s, you'd have a guy, I have a beef with this guy, I'll talk for a little bit, and then we'll settle our beef. Well, now things are dragged out over time. Storylines are developed. People talk more and more on the mic. And I don't know if that's somehow killed it for me a little bit, as far as I just liked it when guys, like you had the Steiner brothers and Doom and Ric Flair and, Dusty Rhodes, they were amazing on the mic, but they didn't have these monologues that they were talking constantly about. And But you got to keep people's attention nowadays. A lot of kids, a lot of younger people, millennials, sometimes myself, we have short attention spans, and we got to get the information quickly, but it's dragged out over time. They give you bursts of information, but everything's dragged out, and then there's a conclusion. And now with all the social media that's prevalent in the world today, you've got a lot of people, fans, or what they would call a mark in professional wrestling is a super fan. They have to let every bit of information. They think that something's wrong, they're going to let you know about it, WWE or Impact Wrestling. If they don't like a storyline, they're going to let you know about it. And a lot of times they'll like change their ways or appease the audience, which, if they're buying tickets, that's the way to do it. Back in the 80s, in the 70s, you could tell everybody what you thought all day long, but it's not going to change the event. And, social media has been big. And what we got to realize, there's a lot of wrestling fans that are getting older, but WWE is still going to target the young audience because basically what it's for. I mean, you looked at when I was a kid growing up, wrestling was great. I was a kid. I mean, so it's different than the UFC or in mixed martial arts. But they got to cater to the kids. WrestleMania, I think there was a kid tagging in one of the main events at WrestleMania. I think it's a fourth grader or something like that. So that's the way it's evolved. It's not just it's me against him. It's not just cut and dry. It's more dragged out. There's a lot of social media interaction, and it's still targeted, extremely to the kids demographic.
And you made a great point that the user experience has influenced the way and the direction that they have taken in terms of their own product. So as a industry person, as a salesperson, whatever else, you've got to know who your audience is, and you've got to feed that audience, because if you don't, they're going to find other ways to spend their time, effort, and energy. So when that comes to leading projects, you've got to get everyone engaged. You've got to get everybody on the same page to keep them entertained, or keep them informed, or keep them moving, keep them passionate about whatever's going on, because if you don't, and you don't know who that audience is, poof, you're going to lose them. So great point there. In terms of your own podcast, you've got the voiceover business, Voices of the Storm recording company that you run, and of course your podcast, Enter the Flex Zone. So tell us a little bit about that and your voiceover business and how those kind of got started.
Well, Enter the Flex Zone has been a year in the making. It was like around 2016. I suffered an injury through my work, and I was on, pretty much laid up for about a year. And I didn't have a house. I didn't have a studio to record. But eventually when I moved into my house, I built the studio. One other guy I consult with, he's more of the business guy. I'm more the entertainer, the producer, and we work well together. And we had this idea. He runs Flex Zone supplements. It's flexzonesups.com, Flex Zone Sups on Instagram. And it's, I've always been into fitness. And since I've been doing so many podcasts with Cage Side Submissions, with MMA Mayhem Radio, I wanted to venture off and do something a little bit different. I wanted to interview people that have taken a chance in life, that maybe win, lose, or draw, they took the chance. And maybe they succeeded or maybe they failed. But I want them to tell their story. Everybody has such a unique story. I interview so many different people from the walks of being a CEO of a kickboxing company, being an author of a stress relief book, suffering through 7 ACL tears and trying to find a way to overcome that and be a different person. A strong woman. I've interviewed them all. And the great experience is I take people back in time. I don't just talk about, okay, what you doing now? So I'm trying to pick and prod and learn from all these different people that I have on my show. And I've learned a lot. I love sharing everybody's story and learning from all these people that have helped me this show has helped me get out of depression. I did episode 00. I was in a really bad state. I was really depressed. Didn't think I really lost hope in a lot of things, and because I've had failure, I felt failure. I've had people tell me that I was going to be, I'll have you back as a ring announcer. I never heard from them again. I've had people tell me, oh, this is going to turn out great, and never does. And I've had this happen over and over and over. And so, to me, my new motto, like I said, punch every day in the face. Don't quit. This is a good thing I got going. I continually like interviewing people and getting out there. Like I said, you can check it out on Apple Podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean. They're all over there. And I feel like I'm going to do an update on my experience through the podcasting. I'm gonna have my idol on my show, my dad.
Awesome. Awesome. The Flex Zone is such a cool, unique name and brand, and I love your logos and your icons with that. One thing I wanted to ask you about from a communication standpoint is from a podcast, we can sit here behind our microphones and, either see each other through a video conference call or just on a phone call and have these interactions. But it's another thing to be a ring announcer for 20 plus years and have that interaction with the audience. So how does your style change when you're communicating via this medium where it's kind of behind the curtain versus with other folks, knowing that some of our listeners are going to be in sales situations and they're going to be on the phone or they might be face-to-face. So how does that change for you?
Yeah, podcasting, it's all on me. There's no, if I'm not prepared or, if I'm having a bad hair day, it's all good because I can just get on my headphones and nobody's seeing me talk and it looks like I'm having an outstanding day. But ring announcing, it's a totally different beast. Not because you're in front of people, because there's more to just going, ladies and gentlemen, there's more to it. You need to be prepared before you even make it to the show. You got to know who's fighting or wrestling on the fight card or the wrestling card. I always send out messages to the wrestlers or the fighters beforehand so I can get all their stats on Facebook. Back in the 90s, you didn't have those options. You either had their phone number or you didn't, or you had their beeper number, which sometimes they wouldn't get back to you. So that has made it better. But as far as being a ring announcer, depending on your promoter, you might have a great promoter or you might have a newbie promoter that just wants to start up a wrestling company. So you're back there making sure the show flows as well. I remember working at Rampage Pro Wrestling, and we were television taped. I mean, it was live TV audience. The show had to flow smoothly, and the promoter was outstanding with Rampage. And I learned a lot through that. But I also learned how to, if they couldn't do the job promoting it, they had other things they needed to do. I could guide the wrestlers, I could guide the refs, I can make the show flow, and everything would work out fine. There was an incident over in Hilton Head where we had a fighter. He broke his leg in the ring or something like that. He had a real bad injury, and the crowd had to sit for over an hour waiting for the ambulance to get this guy on a stretcher. And the one good thing about me is I don't like to sit still. I get bored. And the thing is, when I was doing wrestling announcing or ring announcing for small venues that maybe had 20 people in it, I would always go interview those people when there was dead time, when there was breaks. Because some of these organizations would take 2 or 3 breaks and people lose focus. They lose their attention. So I go interview the kids. I go out in the audience and, just have a good time. So this person gets hurt. An hour goes by, and through that hour, I'm interviewing every person, people drinking beer. Oh, you're drinking a beer, man. What are you drinking? They'd be like, oh, Budweiser. I was like, yeah, the king of beers. And they'd be like, yeah. And I say, who do you want to see fight tonight? And the little kid would go, I want Jimmy to fight. And everybody would be going crazy. And you just got to keep the attention of the fans. And you're a humorist, right? I always like to make people laugh in the ring. But you can't do anything unless you're prepared. And the card could change on you 3 times before the event. And MMA, it's a little bit more solidified. There's not much change that goes on. But in pro wrestling, you could have 3 or 4 matches that have changed before you even get there. So you really got to be on your toes, and you really got to know what's going on, and you got to be able to help the promoter. So you're doing multiple tasks. You're wearing different hats all throughout the event. And by the end of it, you're exhausted.
So many good nuggets in there, Brad. I think the first one is preparation. You can never prepare too much for a sales call, for a presentation, for your workday, because you never know what's going to happen. If you've got a good plan, you can always change the plan. But if you don't have a plan, you're trying to fly by the seat of your pants, and then something else happens, now you're going to be in a state of flux and you're not going to be performing at your best. I think the second thing you said was wonderful, was make sure the show flows. And so as leaders, it's our job as a leader of our department or a leader of our sales team, leader of our business, leader of our home, to make sure that whatever we're trying to achieve continues to move down the track. Now, it may not necessarily move as far down as we want it to move, but it's going to be moving forward and not taking any steps backwards. So always do what you can to make sure the show flows. And then you also said that you would be able to take on other roles, not necessarily just as a ring announcer, but doing other things to help make sure that things were going to come together to make the final result happen. And so I guess we could tie that in with don't be afraid to go outside of your job description to make the mission successful. So just because it's, quote, not your job to do something doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it if it's going to, further advance the company's mission, vision, and values.
Plus, it doesn't make you expendable. When you can do multiple jobs, people are going to hire you back.
Absolutely. You don't want to step on anyone's toes, obviously, and go outside of your realm, but when there's a vacuum of leadership in a specific spot, something happens where someone needs to take action, don't be afraid to jump in there and take action, even if that's not something that you're necessarily comfortable doing. And I'm talking to the S's and the C's out there from my DISC personality assessments. Those folks who are a little bit more reserved, don't be afraid to jump out there and get your hands dirty and get out there and make it happen. Punch every day in the face. I like it.
That's right.
Well, Brad, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time. And how can folks get in touch with you?
Well, you can check me out on Instagram at BradStormLanou, Twitter BradStormVO, also on Facebook. You can go on Voices of the Storm Recording. Go click like on my business page. You can see all the interviews I've done, all the voiceover work I have completed throughout the last couple of years. And you can also see all the preview videos for all my interviews. I do a preview video for every guest that comes on my show, and they usually go out on Thursdays. I also have a YouTube, Brad Lanou. Check them all out. I really appreciate it. If you like the show, comment on iTunes. Leave me a rating and review. I'll pick one rating or review. I'll pick one written review every week and read it out loud on my show. So if you have a business to promote, if you have a band, if you have a video game coming out, I will read it out loud on my show.
And I have done that because the show is awesome. So the reviews out on Apple Podcasts are fantastic. I think they're like 4.75 out of 5. So, and that's like with 20 plus reviews out there. So kudos to you and the team for getting all that stuff together. So it's been great to have you today.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Yeah. You have a great day.
We'll do. So that's going to do it for today's show. I'd like to thank Brad for being with us today. If you've got any questions about the podcast or anything that you'd like to suggest, add, take away, never do that again, that kind of thing, shoot me an email at contact@alexswire-clark.com. You can also visit me at therapportadvantage.com. If you're interested in finding out what personality style you are or to get a personality picture of your entire team, head over to therapportadvantage.com, click on the Rapport Store tab, and the blue Rapport Store link will take you to the assessment page where those assessments will take you about 10 to 15 minutes, provide a ton of insight for you. Also, if you'd like to schedule a free 15-minute coaching session with me to help you improve a relationship in your life, fill out my contact form or shoot me an email. Love to help you out with that. On our next podcast, we'll provide more insights into the mysteries of human behavior. Want to thank you for your time today, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Rapport Advantage podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Join the conversation on Facebook at the Rapport Advantage and follow us on Twitter at Rapport Podcast.